Good morning. I'm back to do more asks this week, and I will do as many posts as I can get away with this week. All right, let's just dive into some of your questions. Hi, I was wondering what your favorite or most compelling symbolism or theory is. Oh, that's hard. There's a lot of good ones. I don't know. Let me think about this for a minute. I have kind of a little bit of a bias toward the deer theory, but that's because I'm the one that came up with that, and it was one of the very first things way back when TD started and when I jumped on that I came up with that I don't think anyone had come up with yet. So I had kind of a pride in that theory. In terms of compelling, I mean, maybe the missing 17 days, because that's something that you just can't get around. The fact that they filmed something, that they hid it, that they still haven't showed it to us, that it had to do with Beth. That's not a theory, that's fact. Okay, we know that they did that, and we're just waiting for them to actually show it to us. So maybe that's the most compelling to me, because until they show us that, I'm not going to give up. You know what I mean? I mean, them showing it to us doesn't completely prove that she's alive, but given that it has to do with a white church, and, you know, both Norman and AMC in general have hinted at the white church storyline, the fact that it came out on some trading cards. I mean, there's just so many things that are fact that they are hinting at and wanting us to pick up on. And, you know, I just don't think there's any getting around it. So maybe just that. And I love the idea of him trying to bury her at a white church, and I cannot wait to see that scene. I think it's going to be heartrending, but I think it's going to be amazing. So, yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, those are the first two that come to mind. But I love all the theories and all the symbolism. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for sending that in. Next one, about the Luna Love Girl. I saw the photo you shared on your video from one of your answers, and I believe that she and EK are friends, at least. Judging the body language from the photo, both of them have their bodies aim toward the other, and very little, if not no distance between them at all. The more I look it, the more it feels like they're besties or good friends. Yeah, it could be. I mean, like I said before, there's just no way to know for certain, so anything we say is pure speculation. It definitely could be, and I understand you're reading the body language that way, but I think you could also argue that Emily often takes pictures with her fans that way, and some of them are more awkward, but that probably depends on the fan, and some of them are more relaxed, so I could see it either way, but you could definitely be right. So, and you know, it's one of those things, let's hope they are, because Luna has dropped what could be TD hints if she does know Emily and work with her and kind of know some behind the scenes stuff, but we just can't prove that. She really may just be a fan as well. So either way, I'm good with. All right, watching the scene where Daryl carried Beth out of Grady in his arms made me realize something. There's only very few people alive in TF who were present from that scene to the very end of the flagship show. Namely, Rick and Michonne, Daryl, Carol, Maggie, Gabriel, Eugene, and Judith as a baby, although she was inside the fire truck with Carl. And Beth too, but the GA doesn't know that. We do. All of these characters from TF have parallels and callback lines that are directly Beth or indirectly Beth related. What do you think? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think it's, you could come at it from either direction, that they're given parallels to Beth to hint at her storyline, but also that I think Beth's arc, you know, it mirrors Rick's arc, and we've had other people with the same arc, and we've seen mini arcs where it all happens in the same episode, and then we've seen massive arcs, you know, like Rick's, where it happens over many seasons. And I think that arc of being separated from your family, and then kind of fighting their way back to each other, and then having a reunion, that's pretty much the biggest theme and template on the entire show. And in many ways, Beth is just the biggest, manifestation of that template. You know, hers is going to be the quintessential one because it's the biggest and the longest and the one that they've tricked the audience the most about. So you could argue that they all have parallels to Beth because that is the template that they use for everybody. And she's just another iteration of it, just a much bigger iteration of it. So yeah, I definitely think that you're right, that they do all have parallels and callback lines and all of that. When they do dialogue, that's her dialogue, I mean, again, you could see it both ways. You could see it that they're doing that to hint at Beth's return. So, for example, before Glenn's death fake out in 6A, which he did end up surviving, he had a ton of Beth dialogue. And that's both because they're following the same template for him. And so you could argue that they're just following the same template, and that's why they have the same dialogue, but they're also doing it on purpose to hint that if Glenn survived, so did Beth. And what do you know? Glenn survived that. So we can surmise then that that dialogue is used when a character has a death fake out but survives it. So yeah, I definitely think you're right. You're onto something there. And yeah, I'm just excited to see where it goes. And, you know, I genuinely hope that everybody who you've mentioned here continues to survive. There were people who I wanted to survive until Beth came back, and unfortunately they didn't. So let's hope these people survive long enough to actually see her again. That would be great. Thanks for your question. Next one. Is it possible that AK and or Scott Gimple knows of our existence, that they have to think carefully, word their answers in interviews when being asked about questions in regards to Beth or something that can lead or has to do with her? What do you think? Oh, I absolutely think that they know of our existence. They pay attention to what's going on online, and you can tell that from their comments, and not always about us. Like, they don't really acknowledge us too much, and I think that's because if they did, then they would have to acknowledge one way or the other what we believe, and they're just, you know, being hush-hush about it, of course, until Beth returns. But we know that they know about the carolers, and they've addressed the carolers directly several times, especially when the carolers get really, really nasty about things. And then they've said, I remember one time Gail Ann Hurd just made a comment about how, I mean, she was being sarcastic, and it was funny, but she said, oh yeah, you know, our fans are known for being chill and cool about stuff. And everybody just kind of laughed because everybody knows the fandom can get so passionate and so, you know, downright nasty sometimes. There are some trolls, and, you know, that's okay with them. I don't think they judge people for being nasty as a general rule. Although they have, you can tell they have gotten frustrated with the nastier shippers a few times. They're glad that the fandom is passionate enough to be talking about it online and fighting about it online, but there's no way that they can follow the carolers and all the other comments online and the way that people talk about things and not know about us. Like, of course they know about us. In fact, there was something, and it was a long time ago, like it was not too far after Coda, when I don't remember who it was. Dang it. It was some account that was associated with the show, and I don't remember which one. So I don't know if it was Skybound or if it was, you know, the official TWD on Instagram or Twitter. Or it was one of them that was clearly linked to the show. And somebody sent in a question. I want to say it was on Twitter because they immediately responded, and it just seems like it was in the Twitter format, you know, back when it was still called Twitter. And the person who addressed that account said, can you tell these idiot team delusional people that Beth is dead and not coming back? And the answer from the account said, we don't think we can change their minds. And I remember there was a big uproar in TD about that because for some reason, a lot of people took that really negatively and thought that either that was confirmation she was dead or that they were making fun of us or something like that. And I couldn't understand why everybody was so upset, because I was going, well, it's not, you know, granted they didn't defend us, or they certainly didn't confirm that she was coming back, but that's not a no. They in a very slippery way, sidestepped the question and just said, we're not going to say anything because we don't think that we can change their minds. But they didn't say no, or that she wasn't coming back, or that we were wrong. You know what I mean? So things like that, we know at the very least people have asked them about us, and I think even if it's not actual TDers, people who have read our stuff have asked them about it, and they always kind of sidestep it. They don't say yes or no, or they'll say something that sounds like no, but when you think about it, it's not really a no. You know what I mean? Things like that. But back to your question, they definitely know about us because people have asked them about us, and we know that they follow the fandom and what is said online. So they most definitely know that we are here and that we exist. As to wording their answers and interviews and such carefully, they do, although I don't even think that it's necessarily because of us. I mean, if they follow us with any detail, and it's hard to know exactly how much detail they follow us in, or if they're actually reading all of our theories, or if they just in general hear about us, you know, we don't know. But I think that they word their answers very carefully anyway, TD or no TD, because they don't want to give away that she's coming back. You know what I mean? So, for example, we know that they have talking points, let's put it that way. And we used to say this all the time on the Talking Dead, the talk show that used to be on after the flagship show. There were certain things I think that they could talk about and certain things they couldn't. So when there was a Daryl heavy episode, I think a lot of TDers would watch in the hopes that he would say something significant, say something about Beth, whatever the case may be. And he never did, but he's not allowed to. He gets his talking points from like Gimple or Angela Kang themselves. And they say, you can talk about this, you can talk about that. I guarantee the questions that Chris is asking have been vetted. A lot of times, even the fan, they would have one fan stand up and ask a question. And I think that the question was genuine from the fan, but they would go through all the fans and decide and say, like, if you could ask a question, what would it be? If you could ask a question, what would it be? And then they would pick the one that they wanted that would serve their purposes, that question. You know what I mean? So everything is vetted. And we know that's true because they've had social media managers who have worked for the company. You guys got to understand that AMC literally employs dozens, if not hundreds, of social media managers, and they're the kind of people that post things across the many accounts, people that post or give articles and things to things like comicbook.com. You know how like when something pops up on one of those sites, it pops up on all of them, just variations on the same article. Okay, that's a very coordinated effort for promotion for the show, okay? And people who are not necessarily, on the inside track and they don't know what's happening with the show or might not know anything about Beth, all of that. But they have come out and said, we get instructions that come down from Gimple himself. We are told what we can post and what we can't post. And if we go outside those, we are fired. And these are just the social media managers, okay? So you have to understand, they 100%, I don't want to say control because that sounds really negative, but they very much guide and keep an eye on and give permission for what people can post and what people can talk about. And that includes the actors. They are told, you can talk about this. Don't you dare talk about this. You know what I mean? And they have to follow that because it's in their contract. So, sorry, I'm kind of rambling here. But the point is, they do carefully word their answers all the time. And more than that, they have talking points. They have things that they can talk about, things that they can't talk about. And when Emily did the French con recently, and then she did one in Amsterdam and Germany too. And I guess this is another evidence of that. I was told that I didn't have videos from all of them. We only had the ones that were sent in from the French one. But I was told that in the other two cons in Amsterdam and Germany, she said the exact same stuff. Okay, so that shows you that it's rehearsed and that she has talking points. And they say, okay, when you go to this particular slew of cons, this is what you're going to say. This is what you're going to talk about. And so she hasn't said things like that in the past that we're super suspicious about how Beth's death was good and maybe it would be cool if she came back now. Like, we've never heard her say those things before, but it's because they've now changed what she's saying and they're saying, now you need to say this. And that shows that she's probably really close to coming back. That's why they're having her say that. They're priming the audience for her return. But before, they didn't say that at all because she wasn't coming back yet. They knew it was going to be a few years. So they had Emily and everyone at the con saying something different. So anyway, the point is that, yes, they do definitely word their answers very, very carefully. And I don't think it even has specifically to do with us, although there is that too. It's just a matter of they know what they're going to say and when in order to guide the audience toward accepting the storylines that are coming up, right? And if you want another evidence of them doing this, it's one that I always point to because it's outside of Beth and Daryl so that we can say, it's not just us having bias about our favorite ship. You can see that they do this in other ways and with other characters. After season 7, they had Kari Payton, who is Ezekiel, and Melissa McBride, Carol, do this goofy little social media thing where it wasn't them in costume as Carol and Ezekiel. It was them looking more contemporary, wearing contemporary clothing and like sunglasses, and they were in a car and they were acting like they were married and she was having a baby and they were going to the hospital to deliver the baby. And everybody thought that was a little bit strange, but they were just hinting the two of them were going to be together now. And then in the next season, they ended up getting and raising Henry. So it was just a hint at the storyline. And it was, even though what they said in the funny little social media video, it wasn't that exactly. Carol didn't actually have a baby and they didn't raise an infant, but they were just priming the audience for what was coming up. And I can guarantee they do that more when there is resistance in the audience to the storyline they're going to tell. So because there's a lot of resistance to anything around Daryl, because people ship him with different people and everyone feels so strongly about his character, they're going to do more priming when that's the case. And in the case of Carol and Ezekiel, kind of the same thing. Because of the carolers, they knew that there was some resistance to her and Ezekiel, so they're just hinting this is where we're going and kind of trying to get the audience on board. And it's actually a psychological tactic, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just preparing people so that they're a little more accepting when the storyline happens, and because, as Gail Ann Hurd said, the audience tends to be pretty passionate and pretty vocal online about the storyline, they're going to do that to try and cut down as much as they can on negativity and resistance when the storyline plays out. Now, of course, they're never going to get rid of all of it because there are trolls online, but anyway, I'm sorry, I've rambled for a really long time. Hopefully that answers your question, but the very short answer is yes, we know that they know about us. And yes, we know that they word their answers very carefully, but it's a whole lot more than that. Like, they have all of their answers, all of their talking points, when they're going to say them, how they're going to say them, at what events they're going to say them, and when they're going to say them in terms of what it precedes in the show, all planned out. Like, that's just how organized Gimple is. And you can see it at different junctures because of what they say and what they talk about. Anyway, but that's a really good question. Thank you for that question. Okay, I'm going to cut it off there for today, and I will be back in the next day or two with more answers for you. Have a good day, guys.